This incident took place in Karachi, back in 2016. At that time, I was around 20 years old. But to truly understand the story, we'll have to go a little back in time. Because what happened later had roots buried deep in the past. When I opened my eyes to the world, we were living in my grandfather's house. His house was in one of the old neighborhoods of Karachi. Narrow lanes, walls with layers of old paint peeling off, and pigeons resting on the rooftops. Everyone in the neighborhood knew each other. In the evenings, the sound of children playing cricket echoed through the streets. Our house had 2 floors. My grandparents lived downstairs, and the 3 of us, the brothers and sister, had our rooms upstairs. I was the eldest, then my younger brother, and finally our sister. My father was a doctor, working in a government hospital. He was a man of great discipline. He liked everything in the house to be neat, calm, and in perfect order. Cleanliness, peace, and patience were sacred to him. My mother, on the other hand, was a gentle and soft-spoken woman. She mostly stayed busy with the housework. Everyone lived together in my grandfather's house. But in that togetherness, there was more tension than affection. My 2 uncles, their wives and children. Everyone had a different temperament. The elder aunt was outspoken, and she often clashed with my mother. Sometimes over washing dishes, sometimes over the spices in food. But deep down, the real issue was something else. That quiet sense of superiority that silently grows within big families. The younger aunt was quieter, but even her silence carried bitterness. My grandmother often sat in the courtyard, reciting her prayer beads, and would sometimes sigh, saying, "This house is not what it used to be." My father would return home from the hospital exhausted, and after seeing the worry on my mother's face, he would stay silent. Many nights, I saw him sitting in the courtyard after dinner, as if the weight of a big decision rested on his shoulders. Sometimes, my mother would quietly shed tears. One night, she told me, "Salman, your father is thinking of getting a separate house." I must have been around 18 then. That news felt both strange and exciting. All my life, I had known only that house. Those same lanes, those same walls. And now, we were talking about leaving it all behind. A few weeks later. After that, father really did go to see a new house, and I went with him. It was located in a relatively peaceful area of Karachi, away from the main road. The outer wall of the house had patches where the old paint had peeled off. But the gate was strong, a heavy iron door, stained with rust. As we entered, there was an open courtyard, and in front, a row of 4 rooms stood in a line. Father looked around quietly for a while and then said, "The house is old, but it will do." He gave a faint smile. Perhaps he had already made up his mind. The day of shifting was extremely busy. It took us half the day just to move the things out of the old house. My brother and I went along with the truck, and by evening, everything had been transferred to the new house. That day, for the first time, I felt how strange a house feels once it's empty. My grandfather's house, once filled with noise and voices, suddenly felt deserted, as if the walls themselves were quietly saying goodbye. The new house was a mess. Boxes scattered on the floor, charpoys, dishes, bundles of clothes everywhere. Mother kept giving instructions constantly. "Salman, put that kitchen box over there. No, not that one, the one with the blue tape on it." We kept unpacking till late at night. The electricity was there, but the light was dim. The bulbs gave off a pale yellow glow. Some rooms had ceiling fans, some didn't. The water pump wasn't working, so we had to fill buckets from the drum in the courtyard and carry them to the bathroom. We were all exhausted that first night, so we went to bed early. Father said, "We'll take care of this house. It just needs a little effort." Mother nodded in agreement, but there was a faint uneasiness in her eyes. Perhaps it was fatigue, perhaps the weight of the past, or maybe something else. The next day, the cleaning began. Cobwebs were swept off the walls, the rooms were washed, and water was poured across the courtyard. Mother personally cleaned the kitchen. Slowly, life began to fall back into rhythm. Father would leave for the hospital every morning at 7. The scent of his white coat lingered in the room long after he was gone. I started going to university. My brother went to school, and my sister stayed home with Mother. Mother seemed calmer now. Everything in the house was finally settling into routine. By evening, when Father returned home in the evenings, we all sat together for dinner. Sometimes my uncle would drop by. We'd have tea, share laughter, small talk. Simple, peaceful moments of family life. Months passed. Mother began to grow fond of the new house. She had one of the walls painted blue, hung a new curtain in the kitchen, and placed a flower pot in the courtyard where she planted jasmine. Every evening, when the scent of those flowers spread through the air, the house truly felt alive, like it had found its soul again. Sometimes Mother would say, "Salmon, this place finally feels peaceful." Her face looked more content every day. She would often smile and say, "I don't know why, but this house feels good to the heart. There's a strange calmness in it." And I used to feel the same. The first year passed beautifully. Sometimes my uncles visited, sometimes grandmother or my elder aunt. In the beginning, I didn't even want them to come. But Father used to say, "Son, you can't cut off relations like that. Time heals everything." And slowly it did. When they came now, there were fewer taunts and more smiles. Then the second year began. Mother started complaining of frequent headaches. She would say, "Salmon, make me some tea today. My head is splitting." I'd tease her, "Amy, you work all day and night. Of course you'll get tired." She would smile faintly and reply, "Yes, maybe it's just exhaustion." At first, we all thought it was nothing serious, just weakness or fatigue. But soon she began to mention something else, that she couldn't sleep at night. One night, I woke up and saw her sitting alone in the courtyard. It was around 2:30 a.m. I walked quietly toward her. "Amy, you haven't slept yet?" I asked. She turned slightly and said softly, "No, I just couldn't sleep, son. My heart feels restless. I came out for some fresh air." I said, "Then I'll sit with you." But she immediately replied, "No, go back to bed. It's nothing." I looked at her face. She avoided my eyes, as if she was hiding something. The next morning, she seemed fine again, like nothing had happened. But that evening, she said something that made my heart skip a beat. She told me she had started seeing strange dreams. I asked, "What kind of dreams?" She said, "There's a woman's face. She doesn't say anything, just looks at me. Sometimes she's standing by the door, sometimes by the window." I laughed and said, "Amy, you're just imagining things." She looked at me only once, and in that single glance, there was something so unsettling, so serious, that I went completely silent. Time went on, and the dreams began to grow stronger. Sometimes, Mother would wake up terrified. Other times, she would just sit silently, lost, distant. Then one night, it happened. She suddenly screamed in her sleep. I ran to her room. Father, my sister, everyone rushed in. Mother was drenched in sweat, trembling. She kept repeating the same words over and over. She was here. She was standing right in front of me. Father placed his hand gently on her head. "Who was here?" he asked. But Mother's eyes looked empty, hollow, as if she wasn't really seeing any of us. She just stood there, staring at nothing, and then went completely silent. The next morning, it was as if nothing had happened. She made breakfast, laughed with us, served food with the same warmth as always. But her laughter, it had changed. It felt forced, like she was trying to appear normal. I began to notice something strange. Her room was almost always locked now. She would say, "Don't come in, I'll clean it myself." One day, by chance, I opened the door, and something about that room felt different. The next few days were unsettling. Sometimes she was her usual self, and sometimes she was completely silent, detached. She started eating less, muttering to herself. and staying awake at night. Many nights, I stayed awake too, pretending to read, but really just listening. From her room, I'd hear faint whispers, as if she were talking softly to someone. I'd walk up to the door, but all I could hear was a single line. "No, I won't go. Leave me alone." Then silence. I told Father one night. He said quietly, "Son, your mother is just tired. She's carrying too much on her shoulders." I didn't argue, but deep down, I knew this wasn't just exhaustion. As the third year began, the strange happenings grew worse. Mother started saying she could hear voices in the house. Sometimes she'd ask me, "Salmon, did you call someone over?" I'd say, "No, why?" She'd reply, "Someone called my name, from right behind me." I listened carefully, many times, but there was nothing. Just that same silence. Only now, heavier, darker. Then one night, we were all sitting together when Mother suddenly screamed again. But this time, there wasn't fear in her voice. There was pain. I rushed to her. "Amy, what happened?" She whispered softly. "She came again." I asked, "Who?" Mother lowered her gaze. "I don't know, but she knows me." That night, I couldn't sleep at all. I stayed with her that night. She was sweating, her breathing fast and uneven. Father was worried too. But between the two of us, there was something unspoken. We both knew. This wasn't just an illness. It was something else. Something beyond our understanding. After that, the atmosphere of the house began to change. Slowly, subtly. Little things started to feel off. Sometimes the lights would turn off on their own. Sometimes the front gate would creak open just a little. And one night, I clearly heard soft footsteps outside my room. Slow, deliberate steps. I opened the door immediately, but there was no one. Mother's room light was on. The door was closed. I thought maybe she was awake again, so I didn't knock. The next morning, she was working in the kitchen as usual. I said nothing, but I couldn't ignore one thing. She had started talking to herself more often. Sometimes while folding clothes. Sometimes while cooking. I'd ask, "Amy, who are you talking to?" She'd quickly reply, "No one, just reciting something quietly." Then her physical condition began to change. Her face turned pale. Dark circles appeared under her eyes. And her voice grew heavier, slower. One day, Father took her to a neurologist. The doctor said, "It's psychological fatigue. She just needs rest." Mother nodded quietly. But on the way back home, she kept repeating the same words, over and over. "The doctor doesn't know. He can't see her." Father asked softly, "See who?" Mother fell silent. After that week, the strange things in the house became more frequent. Soft knocks on the doors, the clinking of utensils in the kitchen, and sometimes, the faint sound of footsteps in the courtyard, as if someone was walking there. I went out many times, but every time, nothing, just the empty space, the wind's whistle, and the rustle of leaves from the old tree outside. One rainy night, Mother had left her window open. I went to close it, but she stopped me. "Don't close it," she said. "She needs to come in." I froze. "Who, Amy?" I asked softly. Her eyes didn't move away from the window. "The one who comes every night." I placed my hand gently on her shoulder. She flinched, startled, as if waking up from a dream. "Oh, it's nothing," she whispered. "I just couldn't sleep. Go to bed, son." That night, I couldn't sleep at all. Outside the window, the rain kept falling, and in between the sound of raindrops, I could swear I heard faint footsteps. The sound outside the window that night was like someone breathing, slow, uneven, close. The next morning, Mother offered her prayers, and then sat silently for the rest of the day. After that day, the air inside the house changed. Every night, it felt as if someone was walking, breathing, then stopping. Even Father began to sense it. He said quietly, I don't know why, but the house feels heavy now. I said nothing, but one thought echoed in my mind. Everything had begun after Mother changed. I had never imagined that an ordinary house could transform before your eyes into something else. At first, everything seemed normal, but slowly, small things began to shift. Mother was no longer the same. Mornings were the same, but her face wasn't. There was a strange emptiness in her eyes. Sometimes, while making tea, she'd stop midway and stare at a single spot for minutes. I'd ask, "Amy, what happened?" She'd startle, as if returning from somewhere far away, and smile faintly. "Nothing, son. I was just lost in thought." But her thoughts were lasting longer every day. Some nights, she'd get up and go to the kitchen. When we noticed, we'd find the stove burning, but the pots were empty. I'd ask, "Amy, you haven't slept?" She'd turn around slowly, her face pale, her eyes like glass, and whisper, "Someone called me, so I came." The next day, she had a fever. Father's face showed worry and doubt. He stayed awake all night. The next morning, he made a decision. "I'm calling an alim," he said firmly. "Something's not right here." On the third day, around ASR time, an elderly scholar arrived. A calm face, with a white beard, and a young student by his side. Mother was in her room, silent, but smiling strangely. The Alim Sahib stepped inside, his eyes scanning the walls and corners. After a moment, he said softly, "This place feels heavy. Something has been staying here for 3 days." My heart sank. Father nodded slowly. The scholar began his recitation. Within minutes, the room began to grow colder. The air felt still, frozen. Mother lifted her head. Her pupils widened, darkened. At first, she was silent. Then suddenly, she screamed, "Stop it! I'm not leaving. This is my house." I stumbled back in fear. The voice that came from her, it wasn't hers. It was deep, masculine, as if echoing from the bottom of a dark well. The Alim Sahib raised his voice and began reciting louder. Mother's body started to tremble. Her hands clenched into fists, her arms stiffened. Then she shouted, "This woman called me herself. I won't leave." I took a step forward, but the Alim Sahib raised his hand, stopping me. "Don't go near her right now, son," he said firmly. The recitation grew stronger. The pressure in the air thickened. The windows began to rattle violently. Mother's hair fell across her face, wild, untamed. Then, for a single moment, she sat upright. Her eyes locked directly onto mine. "Salmon." The way she said my name, it wasn't just a name. It sounded like a reminder, a memory from long ago. I froze, couldn't move. The Alim Sahib continued reciting. Mother suddenly jolted and fell backward. A deep silence filled the room. Moments later, she regained consciousness, weak, trembling. The Alim Sahib recited over a glass of water and sprinkled it gently across her face. Then he said quietly, "It hasn't completely left her yet. There's an old connection here. Something from the past. I'll continue the recitation for 3 days. Until then, be careful." That night, I stayed awake for hours. Mother was asleep, but her lips were moving, whispering softly, as if she was speaking to someone. And for the first time, I felt it clearly. We were not alone in this house anymore. The next morning, Mother's face was pale. So pale it looked as if the blood inside her had drained away. She spoke very little, sometimes murmuring to herself, sometimes smiling faintly at the wall, as if she saw something there, something we couldn't. Father locked every door in the house. The TV, the fans, everything stayed silent. Only one window was left open, so the air could flow in. By evening, the Alim Sahib returned. Same white clothes, same calm face. But this time, there were lines of concern on his forehead. His young student was with him again. When I opened the door, he asked. "Son, how was the night?" I lied. "She's better now." His eyes met mine, deep knowing. "No," he said quietly. "She's not." Mother was sitting on her bed. Her hair was loose, dark circles heavy beneath her eyes, as if sleep had abandoned her for nights. The Alim Sahib sat beside her and began the recitation once again. At the very first verse, Mother's hands began to tremble. Her eyes closed tightly, and then, slowly, her lips began to move. Her lips began to move, but the voice that came out wasn't hers. "I told you. Why do you keep coming back?" The voice was harsh, rough, almost unrecognizable. The Alim Sahib raised his voice, reciting faster. His young student blew over the water. I watched as the air around Mother began to swirl. A faint circular motion, like wind trapped inside a room. Then Mother's voice echoed again, deep and strained. "This is not in her favor." The Alim Sahib demanded, "What is not in her favor?" "She wasn't meant to be saved." The voice growled. "She broke her promise with me." Mother's fists clenched tightly. The veins in her wrists turned blue. The Alim Sahib suddenly stopped reciting. He spoke in a commanding tone. "Be silent. Whoever you are bound by the command of Allah. Leave this body, or be burned." Mother screamed. A scream so sharp, it felt as if burning embers had been poured inside her. Then, silence. The air in the room grew heavy, still. The Alim Sahib gestured to his student, who opened a small bottle of oil, recited over it, and rubbed it gently across Mother's forehead. Her breathing was shallow, but her face slowly began to soften. There was great resistance tonight. The Alim Sahib said quietly, "But she's not completely free yet. Tomorrow will be the final night." That third night was the longest one of all. As soon as the Alim Sahib entered, he said, "This night will be difficult. Whatever has been hidden will reveal itself tonight." Mother lay straight on her bed, her face calm, but her eyes waiting. The recitation began. The air shifted instantly. The light bulb flickered again and again. Mother's body jerked violently. She lifted her head and said just one line. "She made a promise to me. Now you can't stop it." The Alim Sahib began to recite louder, faster. Thick phlegm started to come out of her mouth. The student rushed to support her, but her strength was terrifying, unnatural. For a moment, she stood upright, hair wild, eyes burning red. "I will not leave," she roared. Her scream shook the entire house. The doors slammed shut on their own. The Alim Sahib raised his hand and shouted, "By the command of Allah, depart from this body. Whoever has bound you is weak." He then recited a long verse, and suddenly, it felt as if lightning had struck the room. Mother's body fell to the floor. Silence. Total, consuming silence. Only her heavy breathing remained. Faint, but alive. The Alim Sahib whispered a short prayer, and took the glass of blessed water. He sprinkled the water on her face, then closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. "She is safe now," he said quietly, "but her complete healing will take time." Father asked, "What was it?" The Alim Sahib lowered his gaze. "She was under black magic, old and very deep." Father's hands trembled. I gathered courage and asked, "Who did this?" The Alim Sahib paused for a long moment before replying softly, "The name cannot be taken yet. The one who did it is hidden. If we act in haste, the harm could return." He stood up to leave, and as he stepped out, only one thing remained in the room. That same, heavy silence. Mother was asleep, but on her face was a faint smile, as if someone inside her still hadn't given up. 2 days later, the Alim Sahib came again, quietly as usual. He held a small bottle filled with water. Sitting in the room, he began to recite softly, then called Mother forward. She came and sat silently before him. "It's over now," he said gently. But be cautious. What has left may try to return, but its power is broken now. He handed the bottle to father. Make her drink a little of this each morning and after sunset. By Allah's will, there is healing in it. Mother kept her eyes lowered. She said nothing. At the door as he was leaving, the Alim Sahib turned and said, "Don't ask who did this. Sometimes knowing is a heavier burden than the curse itself." Father simply nodded, and he left. The next day, life seemed normal again. Mother started smiling. My sister began going to school again, and the scent of tea once more filled the house. But still, one thing lingered. At night, when I stayed awake, sometimes I could hear it. The soft imprint of footsteps passing through the courtyard. I'd walk to the window, look outside. Nothing. No one. Maybe it was just my imagination. Maybe the shadow of a memory. Or maybe something truly remained. Something trapped. Not in the walls of the house, but in one of our hearts. I never asked father who it could have been, nor the Alim Sahib, nor even myself. I just hoped that whatever had passed would finally stay gone. But one thing I noticed. Ever since mother had fallen ill, that same shadow never really left us. After that day, my uncle or their wives never came back to our house. Sometimes I think that some wounds may close on the surface, but they never truly heal from the inside. And now, many years later, whenever I hear a woman's faint voice from afar in the silence of Karachi at night, I tell myself that some promises never truly end. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments.